T-minus 50 seconds. T-minus 40 seconds. T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to Women's Wrestling Talk. My name is TK Trinidad. Welcome to Happy Women's History Month. It's been a long day, and I know some of y'all are at 9:30, so I guess I can keep complaining. But Happy Women's History Month. Today, I'm really excited. I really want to highlight female podcasters and podcasts. So that was the whole game plan of it. I have my co-host. I had to look for you. So.
I know. I don't even see myself. Hey, everyone.
I know, right? And we're just gonna let everybody introduce themselves and then get into the ups and downs of podcasting, because I know you all have stories, because we sure do. So we'll go just right beside me, Astrid.
Yeah. My name is Astrid. I'm actually one of the contributors for Love Wrestling CA. And basically what I do is interview women in my series called Astrid Asks, whether they're, wrestlers, referees, commentators, anything. I just started it recently, so I only have about 4 episodes in. But I just find it like it's a great project to highlight women in wrestling. I feel like we don't get enough of that. So I'm just really excited to be part of Love Wrestling in that way and highlight women's wrestling any way I can.
And then right beside her.
All right, cool. So I am Marie Shadows. I am the host and the creator of the Square Circle Podcast. The Square Circle Podcast covers wrestling. It does not matter what it is, if it's mainstream or a little bit of indies, or if I'm traveling and helping out my wrestling buddies on the scene by interviewing them and just helping set up ring crew and all that. So the Square Circle Podcast also breaks down stories. So that way the casual fan and the hardcore fan can understand what the story is all about and why they should get invested into it, and maybe some details they never really thought of. So the Square Circle Podcast deals with just putting wrestling on the map in general.
Nice.
I am Lo. I am the host and founder of Wrestling Wine Down. It is a wrestling podcast focusing on professional wrestling as well as wine. We've been around for about 2 to 3 years now, based in Las Vegas. We focus on people's stories inside and outside of the ring. So I've had the opportunity to work with different graphic designers, wrestlers, producers, other podcasters in the field. And it's been an amazing experience so far, and I'm glad to be here.
And let's go right below Lo.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Queen of the Indies, Tiffany. I'm like, so many boxes. It gets confusing. So I'm the Queen of the Indies. I'm the host of the Indie Wrestling Corner. I do everything independent wrestling related, wrestlers, promoters, referees, backstage. So I do a lot of interviews, and then I do panels for upcoming shows with the promoters. Again, it could be a wrestler, it could be anybody that comes on. Even Queen of NE has been done some panels with me as well, which has been great. And I do some backstage interviews at a lot of different promotions, which is my indie talks, which could be pretty much anything. So it just shows all those guys or girls before they enter or get signed with a higher power, pretty much. So, but yeah, it's been fun.
That's talk about imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
I'm Mimi. I'm dubbed the wrestling chick. I've done a couple of podcasts with some other folks, but now it's me, my co-host April, who's also on the panel today. We are kind of like a unique type of podcast. We are joined by Ellis Umbe and Corey Sanders, who's also part of our spaces. We're not on YouTube, we're on Spaces. And we're called Turnbuckle Talk. We're on 2 days a week, Tuesdays at 7 and Fridays at 10 o'clock. Fridays is usually the jump off night. I write also. I contribute to a couple of different writing outlets. One, I wrote 2 articles for Fightful.com. Fightful Magazine. And also I contribute to a Black Wrestling website, and I also do a couple of their Patreon shows as well.
Hi, I'm the Queen of Any, Queenie. I am the host of the Queen's Court Network. My podcast is called Queen's Court, and I'm recently back out of retirement. So I'm super happy to be back in the podcasting world. Yes, super happy. And I do a lot of series on Queen's Court. 2 of my most favorite are the ones I'm focusing on now, which is Queenie Suggests, which is looking at different podcasts all across the spectrum and doing my best to kind of promote them and show off what they're working on. And then the other thing that I do is Queenie Chats, where I chat with other podcasters, wrestlers, promoters, etc., to kind of showcase their work and talent and bring their voice to a different space if I can. And I've been doing it since 2019, which is kind of crazy that it's been that long. It doesn't feel like that long, but it's super, super great. I met a lot of awesome people, so it's been really fun.
My name's April. I am a co-host with Mimi of Turnbuckle Talk Spaces. Like she said, ours is a Twitter-based space twice a week. I'm also a regular guest host on several non-wrestling podcasts. They're mainly Christmas podcasts, which is a little funny because I'm Jewish, but Kids Podcast, Totally Rad Christmas, Advent Calendar House. I've done a lot of guest hosting with their podcasts. But I tend to stick with the Twitter spaces with Mimi, Corey, and Ellis. That's my wrestling home.
Nice. All right. Last but not least.
Hi, I'm Sade. I am the founder and creator of ddtdivas.com. We currently have a podcast, but it's on hiatus. I did the podcasting bit as a host for before the pandemic, and it became harder to do in the pandemic. So I started focusing more on the writing aspects. So we do reviews and columns and a lot of written pieces.
Nice. So let's talk about podcast. Well, I wonder if we should do wrestling first or podcasting. But let's talk about podcasting first, because I spent half my day doing stuff that pertains to podcasts today. So I feel kind of like, I'm hoping you guys feel like me, but I know you guys have felt like me at one point in time. So what made you want to start a podcast, and talk about like the ups and downs of it, like the process of it? And anybody can go. And if you don't want to talk about it, you can just not say anything. It's just as if we're all having, maybe we should have just implemented the wine.
Yes.
Like the wine aspect.
I know. We didn't bring wine.
I mean, I brought mine.
I know.
All I got is water. How lame.
I got tea, but it's like, man, maybe I should have said bring alcohol.
I don't drink. I got Red Bull. That's all I can do.
Water.
Next time we do that will be the thing. Bring your own alcohol or Ayla water. Or
Just bring a fancy glass and put whatever you want in it.
There you go.
Okay, so yeah, how do you guys get into podcasting? Whoever wants to go.
All right, I'll go first because I actually have a funny story with it. The funny thing is with me was I used to listen to a lot of different wrestling podcasts, and I used to call in to some of them because there's a lot of podcasts out there that they take calls-ins, like if they ask questions or maybe you just wanted to call in and you wanted to talk about something. And I wind up finding like more podcasts that I started being part of, and they were telling me that I should start a podcast. And I was like, I can't do that. They're like, yeah, you can. You know, you got a bunch of fans already. And they're like, you could do it. Now the thing is I wasn't doing a wrestling podcast. I was doing a dating podcast. So that was fun, where I used to talk about different topics of dating and how it could be hard. And I used to do it with another a guy friend that I knew for years. So he wound up getting promoted, so he wind up leaving. So I wind up changing into wrestling, and I used to do AEW with somebody, which they left. But I also used to focus on the indie side. So pretty much I revamped a couple of months ago to completely indies, because that's where my heart completely lies in. So yeah, it's been nuts to think about all the years that I've been podcasting and how I've switched with different things. But I think I found my niche now pretty much in the world of podcasts. But it's frustrating sometimes.
Yes.
That is a funny story, and I like you. You said I was in business with and they left and they
Yup. We're not gonna
Yeah.
we're not gonna air out the dirty laundry for you.
I said, okay, I see. All right.
Yeah. All right. I'll go next. So I never really got into podcasting at all. So like the reason why the Square Circle podcast came about was because on October 19, 2019, that was WWE's pay-per-view Hell in a Cell. And that pay-per-view got me really upset. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna start a podcast and like rant about it, just because, you know, my personality is that like I jump in headfirst to a lot of things. And that's why, like, you know, I have, you know, the career that I have, and then previously working for like WWE. So I usually say that I was a ex-WWE employee turned podcaster now, because I was just ranting about WWE and how to like fix WWE, even ranting about AEW and how to fix AEW. And I had no experience, nothing at all. I just did whatever I needed to do and learned as I go. The ups and downs was that well, the ups were that I decided to get into the podcasting community, and there are like some people that are really helpful, and then some people not helpful. And then the downs was just like, you know, what else can I do? Like, can I change my format? Can I do this? Can I do that? So I did everything trial by error, just to get to where I'm at today, and it pretty like worked out. It worked out great. Now my podcast changed into just focusing on New Japan Pro Wrestling to give that side more of a voice and more of an exposure, since that's the main company that gives me like the most joy when I review my wrestling and stuff. But yeah, and then I also added like my WWE stories on there too to make it interesting, so that people could like come and listen. But like it changed from 2019 all the way to now. I'm very proud of it. So yeah, that's basically my little bit for it.
Nice.
I'll go next. So I actually started Wrestling Wind Down with a friend that I had in college. We both went to school for journalism and media studies. And I was on Twitter one day, and she had posted something about Monday Night Raw. And we were friends for a while, but we never knew that we both had wrestling in common. And I remember tweeting her being like, "You like wrestling?" And she's like, "Yeah." And we kind of played around with the idea of like doing a YouTube or a podcast. So we finally settled on doing a podcast about wrestling, but we noticed there was a lack of female representation within, you know, professional wrestling podcasts. So we didn't really have anyone to like look up to. We wanted to, you know, be that voice for, you know, females and males who watch wrestling who don't fit in with like the stereotypical wrestling podcasts that are out there. And the reason wine came into it was we wanted to be different. We didn't just want to talk about wrestling. We wanted to also talk about something different. My friend loved beer, and I was like, I'm not really a beer drinker. I said, what about wine? And then I randomly was like, what about Wrestling Wine Down? You know, you have SmackDown, take Smack out, put wine in there. And that's how we started. We recorded in our college facility. We were in there for about half of our episodes, and then the pandemic started, and I just decided to take it home and just start recording there. Now it's just me doing the podcast, but you know, it's been such an incredible experience. I've been able to work with people like Iridian Fiera of the Rest Friends podcast. I've worked with, you know, some people on here like the Queen of NE and Mimi and, you know, Lovely Laveau. So many people that they've really brought a lot to my podcast, and I'm very thankful that I've had the opportunity to work with them. And now I see so many female podcasters who are just proud to talk about wrestling, and it makes me so excited to see what the future holds, because when we started, I think Queen of Any was around, those wrestling girls. I remember seeing DDT Divas, but like it was so sparse. And now I see so many, and it just makes me proud as a female wrestling fan and as a podcaster.
Kudos to that. So I'll go next. I started podcasting, I think 2016. It started way back when I was in the 6th grade, and my then podcast partner was my 6th grade classmate, and he came in with a WWF magazine with Hulk Hogan on it, and I was like, "What's that?" And he showed it to me, because I don't know how old you guys are here, but in class, I don't know if anybody did reading now, when like right after recess, you had like 15 minutes or 20 minutes to read. And so our teacher used to say, don't bring any magazines. She was a Black teacher, and she was like, I don't want any magazines. I want a book. And she so amazing. And he brought a magazine that day, being Defiant. And Hulk Hogan was on it, and I just fell in love with wrestling then. Fast forward, used to listen to, I think it was WrestleZone, and he was on WrestleZone, but I didn't know who he was. But we started communicating on Twitter, because he operated under a different screen name. And so he posted a picture one day, and I was like, gosh, that looks like Ray. And so when we started going back and forth, and it turns out he was my classmate that used to sit right next to me, and that turned me into wrestling. And we started doing a podcast together called Big Ray and the Wrestling Chick. So he's the one that gave me my name. And I've joined the bigger crew, because I was only female in the crew. And then that kind of weighed down, because people work, we had jobs, so schedules weren't aligning. And then that kind of fell through a little bit, right? And then I started writing, and I've always written like short stories as a kid. I love to write. And so now I started writing about wrestling, and it became a form of therapy for me. You know what I mean? I'm a single mom, raising a kid at the time. He was into wrestling. I used to write him when he was away at school. Away at camp. I sent him to a 4-week camp away, and it was during the summertime. So I used to write him every time Monday Night Raw came on. Like after Monday Night Raw, I would write him a letter. And then after SmackDown, I would write him a letter.
So when was the wedding?
Huh?
When was the wedding?
Wedding?
Yes. Did you guys get married?
No, my son.
Oh my God! This is one hell of a story.
Where did they wedding come from?
But then I was just thinking like,
come on back.
It's late there.
Okay, so you're writing your son every night, Monday Night Raw.
So he's 18 now. Fast forward, he's 18, about to go to college, and he don't watch wrestling with his mama no more. So that's okay. But now, so then I started doing something else with another friend, and that, schedules or whatever. And then now I decided, I said, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to write anymore. And when I started working for WWE, I used to work there too. I just didn't want to muddy the waters, because sometimes you don't know what the restrictions are. So I didn't want to muddy the waters, really. And the only podcast that I really did during that time was Lowe's podcast, because I just felt like it was during 316 day. We were doing this whole promotion thing with the t-shirts and stuff. So I thought it was perfect. Got permission for that. It was all good. But then wasn't doing that. Got laid off, and then I just said, you know what, I kind of want to do something different. And the Spaces thing started popping off, and I think April knew who Ellis was, but I don't think she knew who Corey was. And I was just like, these are three people that I absolutely adore, off to the side. Let me just get everybody together. You know what I mean? They don't know each other. That's the perfect mix. And we have been doing it since August, I think, or May, I want to say. We've been doing it since May, every week. and it's just been really, really great. We've got the funniest group chat, and it's just been amazing. And that it just opened doors for other opportunities for me to write on other, on columns, on just be guest spots on different podcasts. So it was hard in the beginning because I kind of feel like for me, I just want to write, right? I love the spaces because I feel like you do it and you're out and that's it. You don't have to worry about a StreamYard and all this graphic stuff. It's just voice and you can say and it's fun and it's quick and then you're out. But then I feel like it's morphed into so many different opportunities. And I'm very much a person where if I get an opportunity, I'm going to bring somebody along with me. And, the other two, like I've been on podcasts where I'm like, you probably should have Ellis on there. You probably should have Corey on there. Corey and I, we have a sneaker thing. Now April has come into the pack with the sneaker thing. It's like, it's just been such a journey for the four of us, and they're just like my second family, and I absolutely love them. So, yeah.
That's so sweet.
Nice.
I'll go next, since that seems like a good segue. I actually, like Queen of the Indies, I was a guest on several other podcasts that had nothing to do with wrestling. I had been told several times, you should have your own podcast. You should have your own podcast. I have 4 kids. I go to college on campus full time, and I have a job. So I never had time for my own podcast. I was like, let me just be a guest on your podcast. I can come in, like Mimi just mentioned, I can come in, I can do my thing. You guys can edit, and you guys can, reap the glory of your own podcast. So I actually do still contribute to those podcasts. I'm actually recording with one of the Christmas podcasts tomorrow night. But Mimi came last spring. We were all home because of the pandemic. We had all been wrestling fans. I've known Mimi for a few years. I've known Ellis probably actually longer than I've known Mimi, but it was more of a casual relationship, and I didn't know Corey. And Mimi just came along, and she's like, I've got this, let's try this Twitter space. And like she said, it's an easy in, easy out. I really admire the people who do the full-on podcast because I know how much work goes into it. And it's like, just thinking about it is terrifying to me. So that's kind of why I love our Twitter space so much, because we still get the ability to talk about wrestling, our own experiences in wrestling, but we also get to interact with other people. I think I like the spaces format because you're allowed to bring in other speakers. So if somebody else wants to contribute to the conversation, so we've got regular guests that come in every single, twice a week, and contribute. We get new people that come in and contribute, and it helps keep things fresh because you're always getting those new opinions. And I have a bad habit of, like, my own opinions, I put blinders on, and I don't tend to consider other aspects or other, avenues for the story, or other opinions. And it's really nice to hear, and like light bulb moment, like, oh, well, I never thought about that way. And I think the group has actually talked me down off several ledges when I get very frustrated with wrestling and I'm just like on a rampage, and they're like, well, look at it this way. And so I feel like the podcast and the group interactions really help with just seeing different aspects of wrestling and seeing different opinions. And when you do that, it makes it a lot more fun. And it makes it a lot less, because it's easy to get frustrated with what you think the WWE should be doing or what you think AEW should be doing. But when you hear it in a different way, from a different perspective, it's, like I said, it's like that light bulb moment. So that's why I really enjoy doing what we do in the format that we do. So that's basically what I got.
Good. Of course, with podcasting, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't know about. And just bringing up 3 of them, I guess in your favorite to least favorite, from actually filming it, editing it, or staying on track to make sure you post it consecutively at the same time, like which is the hardest or which is your favorite? Either way.
Oh my God. Okay. I hate editing. I hate it. Oh my God, I hate it so much. So much so that I stopped. I was like, listen, what it is what it is, and what you say is what you say. And if something goes wrong, I'll fix it. But other than that, thank you, Jesus. Post. That's it. I'm done. I can't. But I think like the most fun is the actual recording, because when you meet with people, especially people you don't really know, you're never quite sure what's going to happen.
Right.
Or like who's going to tell you what. Like I had one of my most fun interviews with Effie, independent wrestling daddy of our hearts. I found out a lot of things and he was so wonderful. And it was like the most fun because it was so unexpected that I think was like the best part of what we do, is you never quite know. And some things are like, such a sure thing, okay, I'm going to review this show, or I'm going to talk to, one of my friends and I know we're going to have a good time. But it's the unexpected, I think, is the best part. But the editing, no thanks.
I actually enjoy the editing. I like
Do
it.
you? Oh
Yeah,
God.
like that's like my favorite part.
I was thinking the same things. Like, can we send all our editing to you? Because
yeah, I love editing. For me, the hardest is just trying to get people to commit to being a co-host. Like when I started, I had people who were like, "Yeah, I want to do this podcast with you. I'll do it." And then people started like dropping off and like not wanting to do it and not committing. And when I thought I was getting on a roll with it, the pandemic happened, and then I was like, okay, maybe we can do it remotely. And then people kind of like didn't want to commit to that. And I don't know if I found out that a lot of people that I know who was willing to contribute were more of writers, and they were more willing to write or do photography, and they kind of didn't want to go in the podcast space. And I guess maybe the fear of, I mean, we all know how the wrestling community can be sometimes, and it can be toxic. So, I mean, for me, the hardest was just trying to get someone to help co-host, but I love editing.
I would say for me at least, it's like the hardest part is probably doing research, because I do a lot of interviews and it's just hard to come up with a question that they haven't been asked before. And I try to ask something that's outside of wrestling a little bit every now and then, just because I don't want it to be everything about wrestling. But probably my favorite thing is like when I tweet about it, getting questions from other people and getting their perspective on them. And like being part of like the Love Wrestling group, I get to ask them their like the Slack chat that we have. Hey, do you guys have any questions? And some of them, they know these wrestlers because most of them have been from Canada so far. So it's just nice to see how they bring up their personal like little adventures they have with them and how they know them into these questions, and to see their reactions when I ask them about it too, and seeing their faces. But it's just also nice to like see when like, oh, how did you get into wrestling? Why did you like it? And when I even asked them about like their matches, because most of them have been to multiple art shows and love wrestling so far. So I'm asking them about their matches coming up and how they feel about the experience. It's just incredible to see their faces, and they're like, yeah, I can't wait to kick their butt. And it happened today on Twitter, so it's just nice to see like the reactions they get between one another.
Yeah, I feel that like me and Queen of Any interviewed Alex Zade.
Oh my God.
Oh, we did that together. Oh my God. That podcast, me and Queen had set questions for that interview, and it turned into food talk the entire episode.
He has a lot of opinions on food, don't he?
It was it just kept segueing back to food. It was incredible. It was such a fun experience, and I do a lot of interviews myself, so that's always the best. But I can tell you, one of the downfalls that I have found, and I don't know if anybody's like experienced this, and I know like me and Queen have talked about it, is that there's been so much toxic, and there's so much, speaking out movement happens, and it's hard because you don't know the backstory of some of these people that you interview, and then things come out way later, and then it's upsetting. And this is one of my frustrations, is that those wrestlers or whoever, they get attacked. I get attacked as well, because then they start coming at me because I've done these interviews with these people, maybe a month ago or a year ago or stuff like that. So it's like upsetting, because it's like I put all this work into making thumbnails and making layouts, and I do all my podcasts live, those interviews, and then it's like I involve the chat and all this work that I put into this one particular interview, and then I got to take it down, because then I start getting attacked. But I didn't know this from whenever, I had that person on. I must have took down like a couple of interviews, because they got outed like way later. And then, like I said, that's one of the hardest things for me is like, I'm getting attacked too. And I'm like, I didn't know this. Like, we all didn't know this about this
that's
person.
so weird when people do that. You're like, I found out with you.
Yeah, like I didn't do it. Like people were like, you don't vet your guests. They're like, well, how the hell was I supposed to know that this person was an ass? Like, you know, but it's hard. It's heartbreaking, and it's like it probably puts you down that you put hard work into something, and you gotta like take it down, you know. And maybe you had a lot of fun. That's probably like one of my worst things about podcasting.
Yeah. I think the worst, because I had this happen to me today, is prepping for an interview and then they cancel last minute. That by far is like the most, and then it's just kind of like you spend a lot of time like getting the formatting, the questions, and you know the direction and all this other stuff, and it's just kind of like, okay, this is, and then you try not to be mad. I think that's one of the many pet peeves, but that's one of that happened to me literally today, and I'm just like, I could have spent 2 hours doing something else. Like I still got paid, but yeah. So here we are. So any other ups and downs with podcasting that you guys are like, it comes to mind?
I want to know, since you guys are a little quite a loud one now. It seems to me, because I'm not a podcaster. You guys had like to be great in history in school or something, because you guys come with these dates, time stamps, like weather temperatures, like off the top of the head, or do you just like look at, like, to me, like, were you good in history?
So, a really funny story. That's what I do for my job. I teach children history. Okay. So that's really funny you said that. I am really good with dates. Let's put that together.
Yes. If you would square a circle, I can't see everyone's face because it's so tiny. You're like, October 10th, 2019, it was 74 degrees outside, and so I'm like,
well, I'm so sorry.
Oh, what's up?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, it's just because I like to keep dates about like specific accomplishments that I do. So like I've always had good like sort of memory retention. So you know, before getting into wrestling, I fell in love with writing, and I have my degree in creative writing and a publishing certificate too. So like, you know, just doing research was always like fun for me to like learn these facts and learn other things. Also, a side note, since I live here in New York City, I almost got my license to have tours to tell people, oh, this building here is this and that. Wow. So like I always find it fascinating to like do the research. And that's why if you hear my podcast, I do have to like go back to specific dates and be like, this thing happened between these two wrestlers, and this is why this is important in this story. So like it just helps with everything. I just like researching. And if I knew that you know, maybe in a different parallel universe, if wrestling was a subject in college, like I would ace it and I would just be a teacher for that. That's what I would do.
Yeah, like as a journalist, you've got to like, for me, I like to write about facts. I love wrestling. I'm a fan of it, the storylines, all of that. But when you ask me a specific reason of why I like somebody or whatever, I can give you the chronological order of when it happened, how it happened, why it's significant, aka Roman Reigns, like all of it, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I can go. I have an article coming out in Fightful of why he is the next Mr. WrestleMania, and I give chronological order of where it began, where the hiccups are, and why he now is by far like one of the top wrestlers in the world. And like Marie said, research is key. And I love it, you know, especially if I don't know. I wrote an article about Doudrop and I didn't know anything about her. You know, I never watched the Indies. I only saw her here. So the name thing didn't really bother me as much. But when I had to go in and dig deep about her background and who she was, and when you start putting the pieces together, she is the same wrestler that she was in the Indies now. It's just a name. It doesn't even make a difference that there's a name, and I just instantly became a fan of hers. So for me, it's chronological order, and I'm always asking questions like, but why do you think that? Like, did you see that? Where did you see it? You know, what site was that on? Like, you know what I mean? Almost like, was it in the New York Times type situation? You know, I need to know facts. And plus being a mom, like, you remember everything. Everything.
My secret to remembering everything is have co-hosts that remember everything.
And that's Corey.
I have a horrible memory. I am actually I'm a research geologist. That's what I do. And so my life is spent researching and digging holes in the ground and researching and researching and researching. So when it comes to like name or not names, but like dates, I have co-hosts that are geniuses when it comes to that. And so I fall back on them. That is my secret to the game.
Yep. Corey, we'll talk about something, and Corey will pop up and be like, on the Monday night episode of Raw in 1994 when Shawn Michaels went against blah, blah, blah. And we're like, what the tights that he had on? And it's really significant. I'm like, whoa.
The super deep dive.
We're trying to find out of something. We're like, Corey, where's Corey? We go straight to Corey because he remembers everything. Like, he's our resident wrestling historian.
So let's talk about the time you fell in love with wrestling. Like, I mean, I'm sure it's with anything else when people talk about, I don't know, collecting cards or whatever else people do. But I love hearing that because everybody has different stories. Like, you know, some people, they've been in it to win it since they were like 3. And then some people, it's like they were watching with the boyfriend and now the boyfriend's no longer, but wrestling's still there. So like, you know, tell us about like the time where it's like, this is no matter what, wrestling's, I'm always gonna be in love with it.
I don't know if I can go first, but to me, I remember watching wrestling the first time around. I remember when Lita was pregnant and I was sitting next to my dad asking him, like, what happened to her? Why is she crying? Because I was so young at the time. I didn't understand any of it. But I don't remember like watching it like that until like years later when I moved here, because I'm from Puerto Rico and I moved to Orlando. And moving to Orlando, I remember watching it with him and I fell in love with people like Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. And it just like they ignited the love for me. And then I feel like even though I've been watching it, I feel like there was like people like CM Punk that kind of reignited my love again. And then going back now to NXT, seeing the 4 Horsewomen and like people like Paige and Emma, I feel like they reignited that love I had for wrestling. And then it made me feel even better knowing they would go to the main roster and I would go see even more from them later on. And being here in Orlando, I've been able and have had the great opportunity to be in there for the takeovers and the tapings and like the Mae Young Classic and things like that. So seeing those different events for me have really made me fall in love with wrestling. And doing the shows now, like even I do a show NXT for Love Wrestling on Tuesday. So watching NXT now, I love doing it. And then I do Wednesdays, I do AEW. So little things like that. There's certain people that make me like it and they draw me in. And, you know, I haven't stopped ever since.
I'll go next. So my dad got me into wrestling. He got me into NWA Mid-South, IWA Mid-South, like all the old school wrestling. And, you know, I just fell in love with it. I always tell people that, like, you know, I was like 7 years old when I got into it because I don't really remember exactly when, but seven seems fine to tell people. And then it just grew from there. We watched WWE together. You know, when I was old enough, he took me to some like Ring of Honor events, which was really amazing. And then, like, you know, I just told him that I want to work for WWE. And that was my dream ever since I was like 7. And I finally made it to WWE in 2018. So he passed away last year, but at least he knows that I made it. And that was like one of like the biggest accomplishments that I've ever done. And it was all thanks to him that got me into wrestling. I never fell out of wrestling. I always knew that I was like destined to be in wrestling, whether that was to be a wrestler, but obviously that didn't happen because, you know, I even tried wrestling after WWE, but taking bumps suck. So that's a no go because my body is like, what's wrong with you? Don't you dare fall. You're not supposed to. But I do enjoy running the ropes at least. But I'm not a wrestler. I'm here being a podcaster and trying to put wrestlers over, trying to put my friends over as much as I can, and that's just thanks to like the love that my dad like passed on to me. So yeah.
I'll go next. So, I actually started watching WWE randomly. So, I was at my grandma's house and I was flicking through the channels and I saw John Cena on the Spanish channel. I don't speak Spanish, but I kept watching. And every Sunday it would come on Telemundo and I would just tune in until I finally realized this stuff comes on in English and I just, start watching it from there. I did fall, out of it when I was like 13 through like 15, didn't really watch it. And then um I want to say probably like 17, 18, started kind of casually watching again. And then, as I got older, now I've watched it a lot. Honestly, I think every time I go to a live event or I do a podcast where I learn something, I fall more in love with it. I already know I'm going to have post event depression after I go to WrestleMania because I know it's just going to be like, ugh, I know I'm just going to be so excited and, eager to see everything going on. And it's my first WrestleMania. So, I'm just so excited. But, I've had so many interviews where I leave and I feel like, my guest has given me something with it, whether it's knowledge or like connections. Like I just did an interview with Karen Peterson. She's fully into Joshi wrestling. I have never watched Joshi wrestling. She taught me so much. And I remember leaving that interview and I was like, wow, like I really want to, start watching Joshi. Like just being able to learn from my guests, I feel like makes me fall more in love with wrestling.
That's awesome. So me, God, I don't even remember. This is showing my age, like pretty much. But all I remember is like being young, watching WWF when I was a kid with my dad, and then it was like all like Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and Owen Hart and all that fun stuff. And then I actually fell out right just when like the Attitude Era actually came about. I was like, okay, life is about coming around. I was like, I gotta go to school. I gotta get a job. I gotta like do this. And like, something had to like give. So I kind of fell out. I got back in, I want to say 10 years ago, maybe a little more, something around that. Because I used to bowl and my friends were all talking about wrestling. And I was like, how is wrestling? So I started getting back into wrestling and started watching WWE. I don't watch WWE anymore. It's been a long time, but that's where like my heart fell into the indies because I had a friend who was a referee. So I went to go support him being a ref. And then anybody who knows me knows my story about Anthony Gangone, who's one of my favorite independent wrestlers, who I decided to support him by going to other promotions that he was working at, which led me into my love of the indies so much, of finding new wrestlers and new promotions that I had no idea existed. But it's insane. It's insane how much wrestling there's out there, and if there's things you don't like, I guarantee you there'll be other things you will like. So I didn't think that I would ever be into deathmatch wrestling, and I am all for it. And I get hit all the time with light tubes and steel chairs and barbed wire and all that fun stuff, and I love it. So I love that intimate feel. That's one of the best things about the indies, is that it's very intimate. You can be at a place that has 20 people, you can be at a place that has 500 people, or and it gets really rowdy, but you get that personal touch with all the wrestlers and promoters, and it really is a beautiful community when people come together, and you get to meet a whole bunch of friends too, which is nice. Oh.
For me, my love of wrestling probably started when I was a little kid. I like to say when I was a baby because my mom would leave me with my grandfather, and he just loved wrestling so much. So if I was over his house, he would just have it on, and I would be watching. And I really took to it compared to his other grandchildren. Like out of like 11 grandchildren, I'm like the like biggest wrestling fan. So it's kind of like our thing, me and him. And I always watch wrestling. I never stop, but kind of like in my high school years, I wasn't as passionate about it. Like I didn't enjoy it as much. And then when I went off to college, I started to join wrestling groups, in-person groups and online groups. So that kind of like reignited my passion for it. And it really helped me like feel like I'm more of a hardcore fan now because I joined like these online groups, and in college I was in like these in-person groups. So it's just been a long journey of being a wrestling fan.
For me, I started watching wrestling like because my dad did in the early 90s. I watched on and off through the Attitude Era. It was something fun to do, but I stopped watching for the longest time. Probably until I want to say 2016, where I actually met somebody who wrestles with the WWE, and we became friends. And so I think it was WrestleMania 33, the one in Orlando. I watched it just because I'd watched wrestling in the past, and now I had somebody who that I was watching for. And my daughter, actually, all my kids sat around and watched with me. So my daughter, who is now, she was only, I think, 7, 8 years old at the time. She's 13 now. She actually was the one who kind of fell for it. And she like instantly became obsessed with Kevin Owens, which is very fitting because Kevin Owens is kind of this heel character, and my daughter is very much a little heel character. So she I had tweeted something on Twitter about him, and they kind of from there they grew this little relationship, like my daughter and Kevin Owens, just via Twitter. Like he's like, "Oh, buy her the T-shirt." So I bought her the T-shirt, and he's like, "Oh, now the world is available to her." So she started wanting to go to wrestling shows. So I started taking more of my kids. I started taking my son, and towards the end of 2017, she actually went backstage and met Kevin Owens because he invited her backstage. So seeing my kids fall in love with it and seeing how great some of these wrestlers are to their fans, and seeing how well my daughter was treated, that's when I really fell in love with it. It became something more than just watching on TV. I had friends who, I was making friends through social media, like Mimi. We met via Twitter, just over wrestling. It was something that I was able to bond with over my kids. I've taken my son to WrestleMania before. I've taken my other kids to wrestling shows. We've traveled as far away. We live in North Carolina, but we've traveled as far away as like St. Louis for Money in the Bank pay-per-view. I took my daughter to. So it became kind of a family thing, and it became something that I was able to just spend more time. It's such a busy world. And with everything from school and work and all that stuff, it's something that we could stop and we could enjoy together. And that's kind of, about 5 years ago, that's when I fell back really in love with wrestling.
Nice. I totally just was about to say something. Oh my God, I had such a good question. I was going to say, let's speak it into existence. So, of course, there's probably like thousands of people you guys would love to interview. But like, if you had the choice to interview your dream person like tomorrow, who would it be? Like, who would it be?
Man.
I need a new bucket list, to be honest with you. Like, I've hit all my. I feel like I've hit all my bucket lists, and it's hard. That's like hardcore. I don't even know anymore, to be honest.
I would want to interview Vicky Guerrero.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I would say that I have a mini list, even though I have to get over my overthinking and my shyness to actually like do interviews. It would be Michael Richards from the New Zealand dojo, because New Japan Pro Wrestling just put up their documentary series for what it's like to be in the dojo. And me and him have like already talked back and forth in like DMs, because I write reviews for each episode. So he's pretty cool to like talk with. So I would rather get him on there to talk about like the show, and again to still promote like New Japan. So he'll be my pick.
Nice.
I have
Bianca Belair for me.
Yes, there we go.
Good choice.
She's just
Yes.
amazing. She understood the assignment before she was given the assignment, and she's just the definition of homegrown.
Yes, same here. Bianca Belair. Still holding out hope for Renee Paquette. I would love to interview her and pick her mind. And a random one would be Wardlow, because I just made a hashtag Wine and Wardlow Wednesdays, and I feel like he needs to know about it.
Yes.
I support that.
I like that.
For me,
Yeah,
I think I
Bianca's
have
so
two big
nice and
ones.
sweet. I'm so glad to see all her
Oh,
successes
sorry.
for sure.
I feel like I have two different ones, different like spectrums. I think I have like Rollins because he's the one I fell in love out of the Shield, out of the three members. But then when it comes to female, I think somebody like Zelina, being that she has a Puerto Rican background, I would like to pick up her mind and see somebody that obviously came from the island or like has family with Puerto Rican heritage come up to WWE and be what she's doing right now. I love seeing her on a weekly basis, so I can identify with her.
For me, probably Naomi, because she was kind of my inspiration for starting DDT Divas. Her SmackDown Women's Championship reign and the Glow title. I just love the belt, the Glow belt, and so probably Naomi.
That was unique.
That's my number 2 as well.
Some of mine were already said, but I want to throw in Kenny Omega. I love
there you
him.
go.
I could speak to him. I just want to pick his brain. I just think he's really creative and has so much more to offer just outside of wrestling too, that he'd be really fun to have a chat with. He seems kind of kooky and I like that.
I would say Randy Orton for me. He's very pretty to look at. But also, I feel like he has so much experience in the business, and he has evolved both as a character over the years and as a person over the years. Just to kind of get his take on that. He's very good at what he does, and I think that's why he is my favorite, because he is so good at reinventing himself and making you believe it every single time. And he's been doing it for 25 years, maybe 20. I don't
Forever.
know. Yes. So yeah, he would be mine.
You're putting me on the spot, man. Like, I don't know. Like,
It's a hard one.
it's hard. It's hard because like I interviewed so many people that it's like I feel like I hit a lot of my bucket list, but like indie wise, I'm probably gonna go with Wheeler Yuta because I want to talk about his perfect, beautiful bridge. Anybody knows? Like, oh my god, I can't. And if we're gonna talk about people being pretty, then we're gonna talk about Matt Jackson, because
Oh Lord. Oh my
I
God.
need to ask him why he stopped doing the locomotion, and I need it back so bad.
Oh my. Okay. Well then, here it is. I think we got everybody, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's time to put yourself over. Talk about your podcast. This is also an opportunity if there's any other podcasts. I didn't realize there's only a capacity of 10 people, but I don't think we could have had any more people on here anyway. The boxes have just got way too small. So put over your podcast or put over whatever it is that you want to put over and where people can follow you and all that good stuff.
Well, if anybody doesn't mind, I'll go first because I hear my baby crying, so I gotta go. But first of all, I want to thank you so much for inviting me on to chat with all you wonderful ladies. This has just been such a treat, little mom's night out on the podcasting time. So I want to thank you so much for inviting me, and it's been a real pleasure. For old friends and new, my name is the Queen of Any. You can follow me at the Queen of Any on Twitter. You can follow my podcast, Queen's Court, wherever you listen to podcasts. It's there. But follow me mostly on Twitter. That's where I am most. Talk a lot of trash and try to have a lot of fun. Good humor though, not bad trash, good trash. And I just want to put over women in wrestling, whether they're in the ring, behind the stage, on commentary. Doesn't matter where they are. Journalism, podcasting, support women in wrestling and women in general. So thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks, you
too.
Thanks for joining. Oh, we got bigger.
I was next. So Mimi, you can catch me on Twitter, just like Queen of NE, talking trash. Positive trash. Well, is trash positive? Okay, yeah, that. I am Mimi Shells on Twitter. You can catch us on both April and I on Turnbuckle Talk Spaces on Tuesdays at 7 and Fridays at 10 p.m. at the after party.
Nice.
All right. So, thank you for having me here. This was fantastic to talk about all of this. I really enjoy it. So once again, I am Marie Shadows. Follow me over on Twitter at Marie_Shadows, where I talk wrestling 24/7 and just interact with a bunch of amazing people. You can also follow me on my Twitch channel, because I'm trying to grow that, twitch.tv/Marie_Shadows. You can also follow me at my coffee page, ko-fi.com/Marie_Shadows. Think of it like a Patreon, but it's better than a Patreon because I give you options. You could shop there. You could ask me for commissions. You could even go to my membership, or even give me a one-time donation and then be on your merry way. On the coffee page, I have my writings there where I basically review the New Japan series for Lions War. I catch you up on New Japan Cup. I catch you up on the Best of the Super Juniors. And you could also find my special project. It's a wrestling novel. It's a fictionalized wrestling novel. It's not an autobiography, but it's a fictionalized wrestling novel that you can find there. So, yeah, just follow me all of my social medias, Twitter, Twitch, and the coffee website.
Well, okay, I guess I go. So I'm the Queen of the Indies. You can find me on Twitter at Loves the Dream 82, LUVS, the number 2, Dream 82. Again, host the Indie Wrestling Corner. I'm everywhere as well that you can listen to your podcast. I'm on Twitter. I kind of really do again interviews when I work around the wrestlers, and on the weekends I'm at shows. So then I do indie talks where again I do backstage stuff. So I upload all that stuff randomly depending on the shows. So actually I'm going to take a little break. I'm doing my last interview tomorrow. I'm taking a week and a half. I need it. I'm shot. I need to recharge myself. But I'll be back in a week and a half. So I'll be doing more interviews, getting all those peeps behind. So yeah. So if you want to learn about wrestlers before they get over to the big picture, definitely check me out. So but thank you again for having me on. I appreciate it. So, and all you lovely people, I give you a follow so I can join you on your socials as well, too.
I'll go next. Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you guys. I've been following you guys for a while, and you do a very good job at, spotlighting women in wrestling as well as showcasing a lot of the different female creators that we have within our community. So, I'm very appreciative that you guys do have this platform. I am Lo. I am the founder and host of Wrestling Wind Down. You can follow us at WWDCAST. We are on Twitter and Instagram. We have merch, as you can see right there, Wine 316. It is on woodenmaneuver.net. We have it in a wide array of different colors. What else do we have? A lot. We will be in Dallas. We're trying to see some WrestleMania and all the different indie shows. I want to shout out a couple people that are within the women's wrestling community that have been doing a very good job. Iridian Fierro of the Rest Friends podcast, Teddy Chavez of the Rest Friends podcast, their cousins out of Chicago do their own podcast. They do an amazing job. Ella J of a Wrestling Gal, she does an amazing job. She's also part of this network as well. So many. Those wrestling girls, kayfabe queens, Brittany Sacco, she's a cosplayer here in Las Vegas. You have Casey Liendo out of Texas. She's also a cosplayer. Nakamura or Nicole, wonderful graphic designer. I could go on for days, but there's just so many women in our community that I think we really need to uplift and appreciate, the stuff that they're putting out and support as much as possible. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
I'll go next. I want to say thank you for having me on here. It's nice to see, putting faces to some of the names I've seen on Twitter so far. But you can find me on Twitter, which is Astrid Pizarro, like I have it right there. Usually I do Tuesdays NXT post reactions. So I'll be on Love Wrestling CA, or I do on Wednesdays the watch along for AEW as well. And on the weekends, I like to release my interviews for Astrid Ask series. So just follow Love Wrestling. I have the link in my bio as well on Twitter. My interviews are there on your YouTube, and then we go live on Twitch exclusively on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So just like if you go on my Twitter, you can find the link tree there, and you can find everything I'm doing. Love Wrestling, and follow them. We have a lot of good stuff going on. We have people like Ella that have joined us recently, so it's nice to get that experience of working with people like her.
You can find me. I do pretty much all of my wrestling talk on Twitter. I am at where2 next April. Like Mimi said, we do Turnbuckle Talk on Tuesdays and Friday nights. If you've ever got a burning, opinion that you need to get off your chest, you can come through and have a voice. So I think that is about it, right, Mimi? It's a good way to chime in. Sometimes you have I'm the type of person that has to say what they want to say right away, or else I may going to forget it. And, so it's a good avenue if you come on through and have a couple of minutes to get it off your chest.
Boom.
I'm Sade of DDT Divas. DDT Divas, you can find us on Facebook, a Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram. I believe there's a Discord. Of course, there's ddtdivas.com where all of our writing, reviews, columns, Q&As, everything's on the website. Podcasts, anywhere you can listen to podcasts. Currently, it's on hiatus, but thinking about bringing it back. Also a merch store and buy me a cookie. So, which is buy me a coffee, but I say cookie because cookies are better. I'm not a coffee drinker. So, and I just want to say thank you for having me on, and I just want to thank the DDT Divas team, anyone who helped us along the way. So,
I want to thank you guys too. I apologize. I just shot off and I didn't say thank you. I've been watching you guys for a long time, especially you, TK. You have just been, I came across Black wrestling Twitter, so to speak, women's wrestling Twitter over the pandemic, and we have just been introduced to so many different queens that are out there, and Lo was one of them, and Queen of NE was one of them, and DDT was one of them, and I just admire what you guys are doing. Every time I get a chance, when I'm working, I play your stuff, and you guys are just doing really, really amazing work, and I commend you. So thank you so much for having us on.
That is true, TK.
All right, we want to plug your show that just dropped because we keep forgetting it every week.
Yes, I'm gonna remember this time. So all my stuff is Ayla the Fox, and I might come on and ask some questions because clearly I forget stuff as I'm saying it. And every Monday I drop On the Scroll with Ayla, where I highlight the buzz of the biz, basically just stuff that the women of wrestling are posting on their social media. And then also we're going to be in Dallas, Texas for the collective on Joey Denali's Spring Break and the World of Lucha with my hubs, Air Fox. And then we'll be at WrestleMania. So if anybody's there, of course, stop by. Our member, our student and best friend, one of our friends now, of course, Austin Theory is going to be making his WrestleMania debut. So we'll be excited to see him there. So, of course, watch that and cheer him on. And then in April, I did hear you a couple of you say you were in Orlando. We're going to be the 17th at Shine Wrestling. So if you're near there, stop by and I get one comp. So you can come on in.
There it is. Yeah. I want to thank all you guys for coming on. This the same thing. I've been, I see everybody, but living in America, you got like 5 jobs and it's hard to do everything. Plus watching, 100 hours worth of wrestling. It just gets more and more, which is insane. Anyways, thank you guys so much for coming on. I really, for a couple, let me rewind that back. Thank you for everybody who is a part of Women's Wrestling Talk, because it afforded us the opportunity and the space to do stuff like this. Because when it was 2 or 3 of us, we just didn't have the bandwidth. And now where there's more of us, like Ella Day, and just like Santana, who's the editor-in-chief, all that stuff, it affords us to be able to do stuff like this and not feel like I still have to edit stuff. And I know, the TV divas like to edit, but That's not the play here. So it really just, it really afforded us the opportunity to have this and to put it out there. And thank you guys for taking the time to come on. I know it's super late for some of y'all. So I appreciate that. And the whole goal is just to highlight you guys because even though a lot of people don't think of it, there's a lot of us who watch wrestling and appreciate wrestling. It's not just because the guys are hot. We really appreciate the art of it. So with that being said, one more time, thank you guys for coming on. And you can follow, and thank you guys for watching, and who you guys are going to be watching this after it's recorded. I'm definitely losing my voice. You can follow us on everything at www.talkpod.com. We have articles dropping every single day for Women's History Month. You can also run it back. You can go to our February edition where we had every article drop every day for February. So check that out. We do have a team going to women's wrestling, going to WrestleMania. So be on the lookout for them. Check out our social media, all that good stuff. But other than that, you can follow me on everything at TK Trinidad. I appreciate you all for coming on. Thank you guys for being the guests. Till next time. Ciao, guys.
Bye. Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.